Lonzo Ball just recently said in an interview, I believe, with Angel Reese about who he would include on his Mount Rushmore. And he excluded Kobe from his Mount Rushmore. His reason was this quote I'm going to read. So here's what Lonzo Ball said. I love Kobe Bryant, but he was never the best player to me when I was watching him. Just because he's got the most misses ever, you know what I'm saying? So I have to say, I actually agree with Lonzo Ball. And I'm a lot older than Lonzo Ball, so I've been watching basketball since like the early 90s. I got to see all of Kobe Bryant's career from start to finish. And when I was watching Kobe, I also never felt he was the best player in the league. Just he was always a very good player. I'll give him that. One of the greats. I have him in my top 20 players of all time. I don't have it in my top 10. If you guys are wondering who's in my top 10, I'll just say it from the top of my head in no particular order. Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, Magic, Michael Jordan, Shaq, Hakeem, Tim Duncan, LeBron. So that's my top 10. Kobe somewhere between 11 to 20. But during his career, I just never felt he was the best player in the league. And if we go back to his career, obviously he wasn't the best from the start, and that's fair because he was a rookie. He was still developing his first few years before he became a legit superstar. I thought Kobe didn't become like a legit superstar until like 2001. Like the playoffs is like when he just went from being a really good player to just a great player. It was like a complete transformation from just a year ago. Back in 2000 when he won his first championship, he was really good, but he had moments during that first title run where he was pretty bad in some playoff games. But 2001, he was great, so I gave him that credit. But if you look at his career, just going from that point in time, that during the Lakers three-peat, he was never the best player on that first three-peat team he played on. Shaq was clearly the best player, so there's no way he could have been the best player in the league when he wasn't even the best player on his own team. I felt from the time that Michael Jordan retired in 98, from like 99 until like 07, 08, the best player in the league was either Tim Duncan or Shaq, and it would rotate like just about every other year depending on who won the title. Just those guys were like the best players for like that 8 or 9 year stretch. And then after I would say 07 or 08, LeBron then became the best player of the league. So Kobe was never the best player during that stretch in my eyes. He just wasn't. LeBron took over just in 2008, I would say, and he remained the best player in the league for a good 8 or 10 years. You could argue. Just some people will say after 2016, he wasn't the best player. Some will say 2018. So it's somewhere in that range. But Kobe was just never better than any of those guys during any stretch of his career. I never saw it. I know some people will argue that he was the best player in 2008 when he won that league MVP, but to me that's very close. I still would put LeBron ahead of him that year because LeBron was doing more with a less talented team that he had in Cleveland at that time. Like he didn't have like a legit all-star, I feel, in 2008. I don't even think Mo Williams was on that '08 team that he had. Let me just look that up. That team was just really bad. I'm just going to go back. Just looking this up on Basketball Reference. Let me just see that team. I'm just going to pull it up. Who was on his 07-08 team? That team. Yeah, that team was really bad. Just the best player on that team after LeBron was Zydrunas Ilgauskas, and he was averaging like 14 and 9. Solid numbers, but not what I would call like a great player. Or just a legit all-star player. You could say fringe, but not like legit. And LeBron nearly took out the Celtics that year in the '08 playoffs. Just that series was very close, especially that game 7. It took 40 points from Paul Pierce to offset LeBron's 44 points, and he just nearly took them out. It was just that close. I felt LeBron was better than Kobe that year, but Kobe had a better team. He got Pau Gasol, and that made all the difference in the world. But when he played the Celtics in '08, he got humiliated. I know some people argue that series was competitive, but it really wasn't. The Celtics went up 3-1, and then they laid an egg in the closeout game in Game 5, and then they just crushed them in Game 6. But anyways, Kobe really was never the best player during any of those years in his prime. I felt just it was either Duncan, Shaq, or LeBron just were better than him, just hands down. And I do agree with Lonzo when it comes to the shots missed. Kobe was very inefficient, despite being a great scorer. Kobe was a volume shooter. I used to call him the jack up artist because he would just jack up so many bad shots, and he had this arrogance, which you can see it was his strength, but also his weakness, where he felt that if he kept on shooting, he would eventually get hot, and he could have some games where he was like shooting something ridiculous, like 4 of 25 from the field, just terrible shooting. So I think that was one of his deficiencies that prevented him from being the best player in the league, was that he wasn't efficient enough. And that also affected him when it came to winning games. I think to a great degree that his efficiency was really bad. And it's the reason why he couldn't really win a lot of games until the Lakers got Pau Gasol, because once Shaq was gone, he didn't have someone that could clean up his bricks, like his mansions that he would create. Shaq would clean it up all the time during the first three-peat by grabbing those offensive rebounds, doing the putback dunks, and just giving Kobe just multiple chances to redeem himself. And then Gasol, Bynum, Oda became those guys where they could clean up his bricks and his mansions and just get a bunch of offensive rebounds. Either they will put back the shot in there, or Kobe would get more shot attempts. And they would be very demoralizing to whoever they're playing. But I just never felt he was just better than, again, those guys I mentioned, because he needed a lot of help, and plus he was just very inefficient. I think that always worked against him in my eyes. I know people like to have revisionist history now with him no longer being around, and they're sentimental about it. But the truth is, like, before he passed, Kobe was ranked, I think, like somewhere between 11 and 15 in all these rankings. And then once he passed, suddenly there's revisionist history. It's like, oh yeah, Kobe was the best player of his generation. And I just don't agree with that. So, and plus, just going back to what Lonzo said, he was just very inefficient. I think the biggest advantage Kobe had was he played in the most desirable market in the NBA. Some can argue New York. I think it's very close, but I give LA the edge. It's Hollywood, the Disney marketing, all that works in your favor, as they would say. And also, Kobe was very similar to Michael Jordan. He was very flashy, exciting. Granted, I always looked at him as a defective Jordan, just kind of like made in China Jordan, as I used to call him, because he just wasn't as good as a real thing. That there's a complete difference. I always felt like he was Diet Coke while Jordan was the real Coke. But what Lonzo said, I do believe he's right about that. I definitely agree with him on it. I know some people will get offended by it, but this is not insult to Kobe's legacy. He is a great player, one of the greatest shooting guards of all time. Right now, I can only think of just Michael Jordan on top of my head, ahead of him. But so he has that legacy, but definitely never was the best player in the league. So that's all I have to say.